Hello, everybody. We are back. It's the Holistic Travel Therapy Podcast. I am your host, John Wilson, DPT.
I'm Courtney Condon, occupational therapist. We are coming to you today with the ultimate 5-day road trip. This is a requested episode by some of our committed followers trying to get a little bit more information on some of the road trips that we've taken out here west and kind of what the vibe looks like. What are some of the things we did? What are our highlights? And we're going to sprinkle in some elements of how we stay healthy on the road. So, always coming to you with fun, health filled information.
Definitely. So, yeah, this episode is going to be more travel based, but we're also going to talk about the health part as well. So, if you're ever out west or if you're planning to go out west and you want to see some national parks or you want to see some different cool cities or different cool hikes and landmarks that we saw, this is a great episode for you. Even if you're just kind of interested in, what's out here, because, before this past year, I definitely was never out west before. So, this road trip was probably the best road trip I've been on. We got to see so many amazing things, so I'm really excited to bring it to you guys.
Yes, I think that we did a little bit of research before. We kind of had expectations set, but the best thing is when things exceed your expectations and you kind of get that like feeling of like, wow, this is so serene. Like all the pictures, all the blog posts, all the Instagram posts don't even really do it justice. So that's what's so amazing about, traveling in general, not just doing travel therapy, but going on vacation and going places, is that you really get to immerse yourself in the culture, the activity, the environment, whatever it is, and really just kind of like let go and be on vacation. It's so great.
I agree. I agree. So let me paint the picture for you guys. So basically, we're in Phoenix, Arizona. We got to go to Denver, Colorado, and basically, we're going to drive there in about a week or so. So we kind of have a little bit of time, to stop and see different places. So basically, the first place that we stopped is Sedona, Arizona. And I feel like I never heard of it before coming out here, but I feel like it's definitely a popular place. I've seen other people that I know from Pennsylvania that have visited Sedona, and it is known for its red rock formations.
Yeah.
It is really absolutely beautiful, just red rocks everywhere, huge. They're not mountains, but what are they called?
Oh, I guess we should buttes, I want to say.
Buttes, something like that. But anyways, um, amazing. That the town itself is amazing. That's another thing about a lot of these places that we've been to out west. I feel like there's so many like cute small towns.
Yeah, there's no other way to describe it than cute small town,
Yeah, with like amazing little coffee
Yeah,
shops and just
exactly.
shops and like a few ice cream shops sometimes.
Oh my gosh, so many ice cream
Not
shops
that
at
we
some of
go
these
to the ice
places.
cream shops because we're a health podcast. We skip them and go straight to the juice
Yeah,
store.
if we I would go there too if they had them.
No, but anyway, so Sedona was amazing. Basically, I don't know what's basically we did a few hikes while we were there. My favorite personal hike was Devil's Bridge. So this was about a 4 mile hike, I believe,
Yeah, yeah.
and it came to a bridge, way above, a couple hundred feet in the air, and it was, looking at it, it was pretty narrow and really high up. So we actually went to Sedona, what, a couple months before this with Courtney's
Yeah, with
family,
my
and
parents.
I was like, I'm definitely not going on that bridge. I don't care, what you guys do. Courtney went, but I did not. So finally, we went to Devil's Bridge, and I got the courage to go right in the middle of the bridge, and it was really amazing. So that was my favorite part of it.
Yeah, it's so amazing just being out there and you are just kind of like lost in the hike, in the nature aspect, in the bliss of it all. And so is everyone else. So everyone else is really, kind and like, hey, do you want me to take your picture? Like, that's awesome that you did that. Like, just sharing in that community aspect, which it's like hikers and travelers themselves, I feel like kind of have this their own community. And getting there is really was not that bad. That last little bit, you're literally like climbing up rocks to get to another pretty flat area to get out to the bridge, and it's just like so amazing. Once you go on it one time, you just like feel like you have to go on it again and again. And that's definitely what Jon did that day. He was like, "Oh, okay, there's not a line. Like, let's go back out."
Yeah,
So it was awesome.
the first time we went, it was on a Saturday. There was a line that took about an hour to get onto the bridge. The second time, there was literally no line. So I went out there about
Yeah, it
four
was on
more
a
times.
Monday. So definitely Sedona. A lot of these places that we're going to be talking about today, they are really hotspot travel destinations, which, I always want to preface talking about hikes, national parks, and things by saying, leave it the way you found it. Make sure that you're really trying not to leave an eco footprint. You are packing your trash. You are not littering. Are not going off the trail. So on Saturday when we went, there were so many people.
Yeah.
So when you go to these places, if you have the opportunity based on your work schedule and flights and things like that to go during the week, I would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
So it's just like a completely different experience when you go during the week versus during the weekend.
Definitely. And you kind of want to get there early. I mean, obviously, every place is different. A lot of these places, the parking lots fill up by 6 a.m. You're going to need to take a shuttle or something like that. Luckily, with Devil's Bridge, we were able to get parking, and we got parking for most of the
Yeah.
hikes that we've done.
Yeah, Bill and Donna came in clutch the one time we went to Sedona.
Yeah.
They helped with the parking a lot. So
Definitely.
being aware of that stuff. So then from Sedona, we traveled up Northmore and we went to the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon was amazing. However, before we get to the Grand Canyon, I just want to talk about a couple more hikes in Sedona.
I apologize.
Cathedral
Continue.
Rock was amazing.
Yes.
I don't think, have we talked about this?
We have, yes, in another podcast.
Well, then never mind. Check out Cathedral Rock. Check out the church. Was amazing. If you didn't listen to the other podcast, places in Sedona, really, the spiritual aspect as well. So
yeah, Cathedral Rock was definitely like second best hike in Sedona.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we traveled up to the Grand Canyon and we first watched the sunset. We got there right before sunset, went into the park. It has a really nice area where a bunch of people gather just to kind of watch the sun. Unfortunately, again, sets.
So many people.
Yeah, so many people. Kind of sets behind where you're really looking, but the hue over the canyon is so beautiful. The next day we did the bright. No, I apologize. We did Skeleton.
Yeah, we did South Khabib Trail to Skeleton Point.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Bright Angel Trail was
the next day.
So South Khabib Trail was amazing. Skeleton Point was at the time the lowest, point that we've ever hiked down to. So it was about 2,000 feet down.
Down. Yep, about 4 miles down.
Yeah, and we got there and we were able to see the Colorado River, which from the top of the Grand Canyon you definitely cannot see it. I mean, the Grand Canyon is huge. I mean, can't even describe how big it is. But to be able to see the Colorado River and like actually, see the water running, it was amazing to be down there. And then on the way back up, I noticed my boot kind of gave out a little bit, so I had a nice 2,000-foot elevation hike back up on about one leg, so that was terrible. But
you made it.
That hike was amazing. Definitely a top hike on our trip.
Yeah, I would say that there were so many places along the way for you to stop and get really nice, overlooks of the canyon.
Really makes you say, ooh, ah.
One of the points there. Good job. And then lots of other people as well. So again, we went on a weekday. It was, populated where you never felt like alone or worried, but
we did have a couple stops due to the
mules.
The mules. So you got to watch out for the mules because they will run you over. So you got to get out of the way. However, you can see them coming because they're pretty slow. So just get out of their way, and they're just
they won't run you over.
Yeah, and they're just gonna walk on by with the people that train them, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, so the mules are there to help lay fresh dirt to keep the trails walkable and navigationable for people who come and visit. But that was definitely an amazing hike. I would suggest packing snacks, packing food. That's something that we have definitely learned to do because you can go on an app like All Trails. You can find the hike. It'll sometimes give you an estimated time. However, the biggest thing to be aware of is that everyone hikes at their own pace. There are definitely other things that could slow you down and or speed up your hike. So, making sure that you have snacks, you have water, you have plenty of things to get you through long hikes.
Yeah, and we pack plenty of water. I mean, we packed like 3 water bottles before, and we what almost
We went through all of it.
yeah
I
we
was
ran
like
out.
barely drinking any water at the
So
end to
so
try to
now
save
it's
it.
like 2 water bladders, 3 water bottles. I mean, you really can't uh, overpack water.
Yeah, yeah.
You
So
want to stay hydrated, especially if you're hiking in Arizona.
right. And you want to make sure that at the same time you are drinking water, but maybe also some type of electrolytes. There's tons of them out there on the market. Find the one that works best for you because as you sweat during these hikes, especially in places like Arizona and Utah where the heat is so dry, you're not actually sweating like in Florida, but you are working and perspiring and you're depleting your body of salt. You want to make sure you're getting back in those electrolytes to help your body function at an optimal
Yeah, and
rate.
when we say electrolytes, we're not talking about Gatorade or Powerade. I had a Powerade like uh, what 6 months ago, a year ago, I forget what it
Yeah.
was, and I looked at the sugars, and it was 62 grams of added sugar to the Powerade, and I was just like, this doesn't even make sense. It
Right, right.
it just doesn't even make sense. You don't need to add that much added sugar. It's unbelievable. So there's like Courtney said, there's definitely brands out there that's 0 sugar added, 0 grams of added sugar. Look for that. Sodium, magnesium, potassium,
Right.
the main
Are the
electrolytes you want to
main
get.
electrolytes you want to put back in your body. So kind of thinking on the same line when we're bringing snacks, you want to make sure that maybe you're bringing like some mixed nuts, some, maybe like an apple or dried fruit, something that's going to give you some like natural, you know, minerals, carbs, fats to help fuel you and not like, bag of chips.
The third place we went to was the most underrated spot, I think, by far. I mean,
Yeah.
again, didn't hear of it at all, saw it when we came out to Arizona. So we drove, what, 2 hours? And the only reason it was 2 hours is because we had to drive around the Grand Canyon, which took
Yes.
us literally 2 hours.
Yeah, we had to drive around the Grand Canyon and then you cut in right about the Arizona Utah border.
Yeah, so the top of Arizona, and we went to 2 places that were about 10 minutes away from each other. And
In Page, Arizona, that's
Page,
the city.
yeah, so Page, Arizona. The first one is Antelope Canyon. Antelope Canyon, from my personal experience and from people commenting on the pictures, was probably the most picturesque place that we have been to so far.
Yes, it was essentially a slot canyon. So we had to hike down via steps to get down there. And because it is again a slot canyon, not necessarily like a big canyon like the Grand Canyon, it can have a tendency to flood. So we really had to make sure with our guides that the weather was good and you can only go down there with a guide. That's probably the one unfortunate thing about it.
Yeah, you have to pay for the tour, which
You
is
have to pay for the tour.
most of these, you're able to just, go into the national park. Obviously, you have to pay for the national
Right.
park. We got
But you hike on your own.
exactly, but this one was you're really going down the ladders into the canyon, and it'd be dangerous for people going down there by themselves. So
You need to sign a waiver and all that stuff, but
yeah.
we'd say it was worth it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, the guides definitely know like all the picture spots too, so they'll like take your phone and just take pictures of the canyon of us at the canyon, and it was amazing.
A lot of them are locals, so they have kind of grown up in that environment. They know a lot about, Page, the Slot Canyon, and as John said, when you're walking through, they kind of let you do your own thing, which is really nice. But they also point out, hey, if you look here, this looks like that. Or this is a spot where a storm came through 10 years ago and left it. So it's really awesome to get a little bit of the history behind it, to get a little bit of a local's point of view, and also just to see the beautiful orange rock. You're just like, cascaded in it and surrounded by it. And it is truly one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Definitely. However, right up the road, I personally like Horseshoe Bend even more than
No
Antelope Canyon.
way.
Even more. Probably because we were just able to kind of go there, walk around, and vibe. But Horseshoe Bend was right up the road. Basically, it's this huge
Horseshoe shaped.
horseshoe, and it bends, right? So there's this river.
Very scientific.
There's this river that goes, and it's just amazing, amazing view, amazing pictures. We stayed for the sunset. Um, that was just such a vibe. So that might have been my personal favorite thing that I've seen on the road trip.
Oh, nice to know. Yeah. So it was, kind of you're along the outskirts and you can kayak and do different tours down in Horseshoe Bend itself. But we just kind of did the short walk. So it wasn't an aggressive hike, just a nice little short walk out there and found a nice place to kind of sit. You can also explore. There's definitely different rock features that you can hike on and climb on, and just trying to get the best view of the river itself. I think that is what was so fun about it, is just kind of walking along and seeing like, oh, can I see it from here? How does the pictures look? And this and that. And as John mentioned, the sunset itself sets behind Horseshoe Bend. So when you're sitting there, you are literally watching the sunset go down, and it was really awesome.
Yeah, that was amazing. So what are we on? Day 4 now? So yeah,
Yeah.
that was 3. So day 4, we drove up to Utah. We're now in
So
Utah.
technically that night we drove
Yeah.
up to Utah.
So we drove up to Utah, and yeah,
We
that
yeah,
drive was rough.
it was pitch black. And because we stayed for the sunset at Horseshoe Bend, and we didn't really,
Mm,
we were just driving along. Yeah, there were some twists, some turns. We got to our hotel. It was so late that they were literally like, here's your room key, check in the morning.
yeah.
So we got into our room, exhausted, passed out, woke up the next morning, and we were just in Zion National Park.
Yeah, that
Like,
was crazy.
we just pretty much had driven through the whole entire park
And
to
we didn't
get
even
to
know
our
because it was
hotel.
pitch black.
Yeah, and we didn't even
And a
know
lot
it.
of these national parks, for example, or Sedona, for example, a lot of these cities, towns, they have rules about the lights at night because of the star gazing and the star watching. So that's kind of another cool thing, that they're really pitch black
Yeah.
at nighttime.
So the stars are really prominent. So stargazing is
Yeah,
really,
just going outside, sitting
amazing.
in the hot tub, or just sitting outside watching the stars, such a vibe. But Zion National Park, I mean, wow.
It was probably my favorite.
Yeah, where do we begin?
I know. So, it was just, again, the mix between the red rock and the green. And once you get into the park itself, you have the Virgin River there. It was just, an amazing experience. For Zion, you don't have to do a reservation to get into the park itself, but some of the hikes you do need to have a reservation for, and you do need to get a lottery. So you need to apply for a lottery and get granted the ability to do one of the more treacherous hikes there at Zion, which is called Angel's Landing. So, making sure that if these are things that you guys want to do, you're just always looking at recreation.gov, looking on the national park website. They are going to tell you right there and then what you need to have reservations for, what you need to have time entry for, and what you don't. So pretty big, just so you guys know. We started off strong. We did uh Angel's Landing first. It was, pretty much up a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of the way. And it was about what, a 6 mile hike round trip. It was just so beautiful. I think that it's one of those things where when you're going up, you're like, man, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. The steady incline, not a lot of areas that are like flat to take rest. You kind of just have to go until you get to a point where it's flat to take rest. And you see everyone coming down that, like, again, I'm not trying to say anything, but they're way less athletic than we are. And I'm like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it.
Exactly.
So it was such a cool experience once we got to, Angel's Landing, and we started climbing with the chains and, going through some of the narrow passageways, it is a little tedious because it's one way. So if people are coming one direction, you have to wait until they all pass and then you go. But I think just to be able to experience it and say that we did it and we challenged ourselves to that point is what's so amazing. Sometimes you are out there looking for relaxation, you know, ways to kind of just de stress. And I think the best thing about going on a road trip with national parks is you can do both. You can find time to relax and de stress, and you can also find time to challenge yourself and get that feeling of like accomplishment and satisfaction.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think my favorite part of Zion was Courtney's idea. This was an amazing idea. So basically, Zion National Park, there's 7 or 9 stops.
There's 9 stops, but I think like 2 of them were
We're closed.
closed.
But anyway, so there's 9 stops with the shuttle, and the shuttle goes, all the way up the mountain to the ninth stop. So we had our bikes there, and Courtney's idea was to put our bikes on the shuttle. The shuttle drove us to the ninth stop. We got out and we biked all the way back, and we were able to stop at a couple different stops, do a few hikes on the way. But
Yeah, so unfortunately the Narrows was closed. That's a pretty big, well-known hike in Zion, and they were closed due to the flow rate of the water being too high. So it was too fast and too high, which made it dangerous for people to go do. We were still able to kind of do like the path walk along the Virgin River. I know it's definitely not the same thing, but from there we were able to bike down. It was pretty much, downhill most of the
it
time,
was
a
a
little
vibe.
uphill here and there, but we were able to stop at Emerald Pools at stop 5 or 6, I believe, and do that nice little like 4 mile hike. And
Yeah,
then,
little waterfalls.
yeah, they had little waterfalls, and that was really cool to be able to go. You like went under where the waterfalls were going over, and it was warm in Utah, so it was nice to get a little fresh water
Yeah,
and
definitely.
cool dampness.
And then stop number 5 on our road trip, also in Utah, is Moab, Utah. So again, never heard of it beforehand, but Moab is extremely popular. Small town vibes. I mean, again, all these towns are very similar. They kind of have like their local, coffee shops, restaurants, stuff like that. Um, but around Moab, a lot of different parks. The main one right next to it is called Arches National Park.
Yeah, there's a few other ones, Canyonlands.
Bryce Canyon, but that's a little further, but
Yeah, Bryce Canyon is kind of like in between Zion and Arches, but still kind of along the way. But Arches, as you may have guessed, has a lot of different arch formations in the rock that have been there, for a very, very long time. And they do an amazing job of educating you at each arch what it's about, kind of how they look at the arches, how they assess to make sure that they're not going to fall or
yeah.
break or anything like that. They've
And
actually had to change the paths of some of the hikes to,
yeah,
avoid falling pieces.
a lot of them you can go under, like right under the arch, because it's pretty,
Dirty
yes, pretty sturdy. But the one, what's it called?
landscape.
Landscape arch. That was definitely my favorite. Very, narrow, very long arch. Yeah, they had to change the hike. You couldn't hike up to it anymore because it fell back in 1997 by name of Thomas Jefferson. Actually, no, I don't
Shut up.
remember. It was somebody. Someone took a picture of it though, falling. Remember?
Yeah, but not Thomas Jefferson.
It was somebody like that. But uh, but yeah, so they had to change it. So very narrow, super cool. Delicate Arch is the most famous. There was so many people there, so kind of hard to get super nice pictures. But again, just to see it, was amazing.
Yeah, and there is Sand Dunes Arch, so it's literally like in sand. You were just like at the beach pretty much, but there was no water and there was just arches in the background. And that area we kind of went off on our own and hiked up some rocks, and it was really beautiful. I think everything we did at Arches exceeded my expectations because just the color of the rock and the formations that they make, whether it be an arch or not, I was like, wow, this is a lot cooler than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and balanced rock is another thing that was super cool. I mean, the bottom of it was like this kind of narrow-ish thing, kind of looked like a hand or something. And then there was just this huge, like 100-ton boulder, like even bigger than and weighed more than you could even imagine, and it was somehow balancing on this like little. So that was kind of cool to see and just kind of learn about like how the erosion and the water lead to these different formations. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I think that it, as I mentioned, they had a little bit of education at each piece. So you can tell some of the national parks that are really groomed and taken care of. And for such a small fee, you think, I mean, we paid $80 for a year-long pass to every national park in the United States. I mean, that doesn't even do it justice. I almost want to pay more just because I'm
You
like,
should.
I
You should
got such
just
a
send
good
them some money.
deal. Two arches. So it just, having that little piece of education, history along the way gives that, kind of like, okay, this is a piece of history. I think of history in terms of Europe adventures, and there's so much history in other, cultures and countries, but there's a lot of history and culture right here in our own backyards. So I
Yeah.
think that's so important.
Definitely. And we are in Colorado now. So we've been on a few hikes that we'll have another episode probably in the next few weeks about
Yeah.
amazing, amazing hikes here in Colorado. But yeah, we just want to kind of touch on just a couple of the health things like we talked about earlier, just always staying, super hydrated, bringing those electrolyte packets. Courtney and I both would, bring sandwiches, snacks, stuff like that. Because when you're on a road trip and when you're on vacation, I think obviously, everyone's different, but some people drink, some people, eat whatever because they're on vacation. And I personally feel like not only are you kind of hurting yourself during the vacation, just as far as feeling good and being able to do everything that you want to do, you're going to hurt yourself after the vacation as well, after the road trip, whenever you get to your destination or you get back to wherever you are. um, so you're going to hurt yourself if you don't kind of take the necessary steps. And I feel like we've been traveling for a year now and we've kind of learned a lot. So take that extra step of just, hey, let's like pack some, tuna fish sandwiches or, some healthy, perfect bars, some healthier snacks. Um, and then obviously, the water and hydration as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge. The big thing too, when you're on vacation, remembering that everything is a balance, and that if you tip the scales too much one direction while you're on vacation, you are unfortunately kind of digging yourself out of the hole when you get back. If you are, staying up too late, or even if you're, doing too much throughout the day and you're not taking time to rest and recover for yourself, then that's great. Your body will probably go into, survival mode and get you through your amazing vacation. You're kind of, hopped up on adrenaline, feel good hormones, all that stuff. But when you come back and you try to settle into your normal routine, your body is in a little bit of a shock because it's like, hey, you depleted so much energy over these last 5, 6, 7 days, and I need time to get back. I think that everyone always says, I need a vacation from my vacation, right? Well, then you're really not doing your vacation any justice. Trying to find that balance, I think, is the most important thing. And as we've talked about before, how can you find ways to make your vacations a little more health focused? I'm all for, as John said, let's get some ice cream. We love to get ice cream, after a long day of hiking. And maybe it's something that we split. We don't each get two
Yeah.
scoops, but we'll split something, or we'll, maybe try to make wiser decisions as far as what we're eating during the day. So then we can have a little ice cream and we're not feeling, again, like overly full, uncomfortable, which then might lead to a poor night's sleep, not waking up feeling good the next day, So just all trying to find that balance. I think that we wouldn't be able to do half the things that we do during our trips and during our everyday life if we didn't find that balance.
Yeah, no, we've seen multiple comments of people saying like, do you ever work? Do you ever rest? I mean, we work 40 hours a week. We both work really hard on this, these travel assignments. So, like Courtney said, taking that extra step, but also kind of, having a balance of like, okay, time to rest, time to, get to sleep at a decent time to do these health conscious things so that we're able to have the energy to do all the amazing things that we want to do and all the amazing things that you want to do.
Yes. My last little tidbit here is going to be just get out in nature. I think that we have found a new love for nature in this road trip, and being out in all these national parks has been so amazing. So if you have the opportunity to get out and explore a national park, that is my challenge to you this year. Even if it's just a park in your own backyard, where can you get outside a little bit more? If you guys have any questions about the ultimate 5-day road trip, drop it in the comments. This is kind of like a fun talk about our experience
We're,
episode.
we're coming back next week with an episode strictly on ultra processed foods, and you're not going to want to miss it.
Okay, that was a little scary.
It's a scary thing.
All right, so tune in next week. I don't know if we're going to have that as an episode, but we'll have something awesome, interesting, health conscious, funny coming to you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate your feedback, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.